Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Alaric Ferns, and on behalf of the Economic Times and the Aditya Birla Group, it's a privilege to bid you all a very warm welcome, all of us, our esteemed guests, and of course, all the students participating this year. The Economic Times Young Leaders B School edition, presented by the Aditya Birla Group, is a platform for recognizing and rewarding India's most promising final year management students. This national talent hunt identifies and celebrates young leaders from India's premier B schools before they step up into the professional world. This year, in this 2016 edition, it received participation from almost 12,000 final year students from B schools across India. It's tough. The students underwent assessments in the form of online tests and case study across 3 phases. Today, 48 finalists were interviewed by some of India's top business leaders. And very soon, we're going to announce the list of this year's Economic Times Young Leaders B School edition. But before we get to the announcement that you're waiting for, we have a panel discussion. The theme is Leadership, How to Innovate and Grow in a Disruptive World. We're very fortunate that we have a panel with us who have faced exigencies with ALAN and have been recognized as innovative leaders in their spheres. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the CEO of Aditya Birla Fashion Retail, Ashish Dikshit, the Managing Director and CEO of Marico, Saguata Gupta, President, American Express South Asia, Sanjay Rishi, CEO, Standard Chartered India, Zarin Daruwala, Ajay Srinivasan, Chief Executive, Aditya Birla Financial Services, Managing Director, Boston Consulting Group, Neeraj Aggarwal, and adding to this cup of cheer, Sumitro Ghosh, CEO, Tata Starbucks. The Senior News Editor, ET Now, Ms. Tanvir Gill. Over to you, Tanvir. Thank you.
Welcome to all of you for this very special panel discussion on the sidelines of the Economic Times Young Leaders Business School edition. The topic has already been put out as leadership, how to innovate and grow in a disruptive world. The idea behind this panel discussion would really be to give you guys, takeaways, make this experience a bit more enriching than it already has been in terms of understanding what the brightest minds in the business look for in young leaders. And, Zarin, let's just start off this panel discussion with a basic question. Ashish gave me the cue to this question. He said that this was not a learning exercise only for the students, the candidates and the participants, but also for all of you in meeting all of these young leaders. So, what were your thoughts with today's exercise where you met 9 to 10 candidates in terms of the kind of quality of talent that you see among the youth?
In fact, I was telling Ajay, that if I had appeared for an interview along with these kids, I may just not have made it. I think they're extremely bright kids. I remember when I joined my first organization, I don't think I was even half as good as the kids today. So for me, it was a great learning experience about the kind of talent that we are seeing. And I think, I think we are blessed to see in India the kind of entrepreneurial spirit, the passion that we see in the kids to go to the top. I think it's a wonderful experience.
Sanjay, no hard questions. And what was your experience like?
Well, I've been privileged to attend this for the 3rd year now. And I have to start by complimenting the Aditya Birla Group as well as the Economic Times for embarking on this venture and more importantly for sticking with it. I think it's a fantastic exercise in identifying and building human capital. Talent is going to be the differentiator for companies across sectors in times to come. And I think this is a wonderful talent building exercise. When you look at the statistics, 12,000 people who enrolled, and there's a little less than 50 of you in the room. That's less than 0.5% of the people. And I think no matter what the outcome, to echo Zarin's point, all of you are winners. Because being in the top 0.5% is a fantastic achievement. The quality has certainly gotten better over the years. I say this from batch to batch. Next year, if I have the privilege of being invited, don't feel bad if I say the quality is even better than this batch. But that's a good thing. That's a fantastic thing.
No,
and
the common thought between all of you was like, thank God we are not there. Thank God our time is gone. But Neeraj, if there was one word of advice that you would give, perhaps something that you came across in your interactions as an area to grow or perhaps focus on in developing their leadership styles because they're still evolving, right? What would that be?
If I was to reflect on in the world that we are in today, the role of a leader is not just to stand out in what he or she does and lead by example, but also amplify. So because we're reaching a world where there's a lot more need for collaboration with people who may not be part of your organization. There's a lot more need for, far more change happening. So you need to be able to amplify your influence faster. So how do you work with people who are not in direct control? How do you collaborate with them? How do you create a multiplier effect on not just your time, but a much faster thing is a very important differentiator, I feel, in today's world.
Ashish, this has been a learning exercise for you, but what's the learning that you hope the students take away from it?
They're dreaming bigger. They're thinking far early of many issues that we came across much later in our careers. They seem to be clearer about where they want to go and what it takes to get there very often. I would tend to agree that I think sometimes the journey may tend to look like a lonely journey, and it's any leadership journey is actually about building teams and leading people. So that's something that each individual needs to start thinking a little bit more about. I think the courage of conviction and authenticity is the other thing. These are very bright people with great understanding and good minds. Ability to believe in their own convictions and move forward with confidence.
The topic of discussion today is how to innovate and grow in a disruptive world. And the two operative terms there are really innovation and disruption. And we've heard them time and time again. I mean, those are really the buzzwords in the industry right now. Ajay, how do you see the balance between innovation and disruption?
In my view, the focus of disruption and innovation, I think, has to be the customer. I think if you do it for any other reason, I think you're wasting your time. Ultimately, if it has to make a difference to the customer's life, has to add value to the customer. And I think that's one big filter, at least I use, in terms of figuring out what should be on the agenda and not on the agenda. Because if it's not going to make a big difference to the customer's life, it should not be in the top of your list as such. In terms of the toolkit, and I think that's the second bit of the approach to your question, a toolkit to deal with this world, and I think if you're looking at the future leaders sitting in this room, I would just talk about three things that I think will be absolutely important to have in your toolkit. I think the first is really decision-making skills. Because in my view, the way the world is changing, the complexity of the world, and the kind of information you're able to get today to be able to take a decision is just so mind-blowing that I think anybody in business school who's used to a nice simple model where you get the inputs and you can figure out what the outputs doesn't exist in the real world. So how you deal with decisions when you're at one end faced with a large amount of information, and at the other end actually have sometimes no information but have to take a decision. So I think decision making becomes a skill that unfortunately they don't teach you in many business schools and in many educational institutions, but becomes a distinguishing character for successful leaders. I think the second aspect I'd like to call out is unlearning skill as much as learning skill. Because at least as far as I'm concerned, I think unless I start unlearning some of the things that I've learned and start relearning, I'm going to become a dinosaur very soon. So it's very important to let go of stuff you've learned as much as picking up new stuff. And I think that's the second thing that you have to learn when you're thinking about innovation and disruption, is what you let go of as much as what you hold. And I think the third element I'd like to talk about is resilience, because in a world where there's so much of change and you're buffeted so much by the winds of rapid change, if you're not resilient and you're not able to deal with challenges and obstacles and failure, then I think you're going to find yourself burnt out very soon. So I think those are three things I would call out at least as things that the leaders of tomorrow need to look at to succeed in this world we're living in.
All right. Coming to the consumer kings then, Saguata, what's been your approach in balancing between innovation and disruption?
Talent, growth, and innovation goes hand in hand. It feeds into itself and the culture. So what we really look at, I think, is that if you want to create a culture of innovation, you have to encourage experimentation. You need to ensure that there is no fear of failure, because risk averseness is something that otherwise breeds in a culture when there is there's a fear of failure in the system. So the second thing is that I think as far as disruption is concerned is you need to be outside in as opposed to inside out, because a lot of companies, because of successes, complacency sets in, you are leaders, but you need to have the mindset to disrupt yourself. And another thing, as I said, is about how do you encourage risk-taking as a part of your culture?
No. Sumi, speed of execution is what helped Starbucks as well, right, in the last 4 years to scale up in India.
Yes, speed execution is critical. And what I like to say is 80% of what we do in Starbucks is out of some sort of playbook and that you need to follow. The most unique thing about Starbucks is the 20% really is dependent on our partners. We call our people who work for us partners, doing some level of innovation, whether it's in a store to customize something for a customer, or whether it's trying something really aggressive to go get more customers. And the one thing I'd share about being a leader and being disruptive and trying to provide a landscape for innovation, you as a leader have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if you're not uncomfortable and you're not worried about something being right on the edge, you're probably not pushing hard enough. And then in order to do that, as a leader, you probably have to give up a level of control on the outcome that you may or may not be comfortable with.
But it's a fast-paced world, Neeraj, and since you are heading one of the big consulting firms in India, you would face that challenge with your clients because the businesses they are in are very dynamic. So you need to keep on advising them on changing their strategies. Does that also mean a lot of adaptability?
Look, we are in a world where you need to be like a sponge. You need to absorb. There's so much going on, and you need to have your antennas always on. You need to learn all the time. You need to have the humility to learn from anybody, right? I mean, ego, I think, is the biggest problem of the day you feel you've learned everything, you're gone, right? I think Ajay said it well when he said you have to unlearn all the time. So I think it's very, very critical to continuously learn, because leadership is all about taking the first steps to something when others will choose to follow. So you'll have limited data at that time. Once you have, in hindsight, leadership is easy. It's in foresight when leadership is tough, right? The other thing is, the big challenge is all the kids here are all so much smarter, Zarin said it, than we were at this age, So you'll continuously lead people who are smarter than you are. So you have to be secure in that environment. I think that is very critical as well, I feel. And it's easier said than done, because the leader should not become the lowest common denominator where you end up being. It should just be an amplifier again.
Right. And perhaps you want to share your experience in interviewing the candidates. Was there a sense that, I don't want to get into the hierarchy game. I want to, start my own business, go the entrepreneurial route. And if that's the kind of bent of mind that's developing among young leaders, then what should be the approach, Sanjay?
First of all, it's very refreshing that not everybody thinks about success in conventional terms as in corporate success. I would say that the learning mindset, the unlearning and learning mindset, I think to enable that, people also need to have a spirit of teamwork and collaboration. You will meet people, as Neeraj said, smarter than you. But they may be cognitively smarter than you. They may have more cognitive skills than you. But you can actually be emotionally smarter than them because you can create the ability to listen and learn from them. And sometimes one of the biggest drawbacks I've seen in very smart people is that they think they're so smart that they know it all, and they shut their mind to learning because the other guy doesn't know as much as me. But if the other guy approaches the mindset of, I don't know as much as him, here's an opportunity for me to learn, then who ends out the winner at the end of that transaction? It's the guy who knows less and not the person who knows more. This learning mindset is something which I would urge all of you to always have with you. And the start point of that learning mindset is that every transaction, every interaction with a colleague, with somebody who's working for me, or with somebody who I'm working for, is an opportunity for me to climb up that learning curve a little bit more and to get a little bit more smarter. And that comes through the spirit of teamwork and collaboration, which you should never forget as a critical ingredient for success in life.
Right. That actually is an excellent point, because I was just thinking about this before the panel discussion started, about how the young leaders or the leaders of tomorrow need to have a high EQ, a high emotional quotient. Zarin, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think as you go up the ladder, it's a very, very important trait as a leader. As you rightly said, one, I think humility. I think if as you go up, I think success should not go to your head. It's extremely important to stay humble and stay connected. And if your door is open to anybody who can engage you, you learn a lot. The second thing I think is being able to separate the, sort of what you need to do and not get cluttered up, right? You rightly said. I think as a leader, it's very important that you stay focused, you stay decisive, and also you sort of filter out what you need to do as you go up in life. That's also very important. And the third is a spirit of working together, collaboration, carrying your team along in what you're doing. If your team has not bought into your strategy, however good your strategy, it will be a failed strategy. I always tell my people, intelligence is a given after a certain level. Intelligence after a certain level, everybody, your peer group has it. What makes you stand out is actually your emotional leadership and how you connect with people, how you understand people, how you make people rally behind your change agenda. I think that's what defines.
Right, Ashish, in a consumer-oriented business where it's really about sales targets and it's really about expanding market share and going down to the grassroots level, how much of an EQ, high EQ, really helps?
Our business, half of our revenues come through direct retail to consumers. We are living in a world where consumers are reshaping the entire industry, right from value proposition to the journey cycle, and therefore listening, constantly changing, evolving, and in fact going one step further and taking a few risks in anticipation of how some of the consumers' action will be. And all that cannot be one man's job, cannot even be the top leadership job. This is something that the organization needs to pick up from across the people right at the front end, the retail managers, the product managers who are constantly experiencing it. You need to create an environment where it travels fast. There is a lot of noise, as Zarin said, there's a lot of noise, so there is a need for decisive actions. You may have to go back more often than what you did in past, even on those actions, so that humility is required, both strategically and at a leadership level personally. And I think those are some of the important levers if you want to live in a world which is changing so rapidly around you.
Right. Sumi, how many times did you have to revisit your plans while you were growing your business in India?
I think it's always key to check in on the progress on things, and especially if you're a leader, you have to go all the way to the front line and understand. I always say there's only one register on one side of the entire organization, and that's where the most important people are that support our customers. And the people closest to the customers are usually the most critical. And if you're out of touch with that at all, you're going to steer the ship in the wrong direction.
Organizations, are they also increasingly focusing on building or cultivating a culture that is, helping leaders build their styles and grow? I believe Starbucks has that sort of in-house program.
First and foremost, it comes with hiring, and we say if you're hiring one for the product that they can produce, but also how well they treat the people that are around you. And we have at Starbucks, the mission is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, one neighborhood at a time. And a lot of companies have mission statements. Our company actually believes that. So we invest heavily in making sure people fully grasp and understand the responsibility, the privilege it is to have the people that work for us, and that we also say if the customer experience will never exceed the employee's experience. If you don't have the right experience there, that you can't expect it to be better for the customer.
Okay, so we've spoken about the traits that you guys would be looking at in the leaders for the future, but what about leadership traps? I mean, the one word that really stood out from each one of your answers was ego. Keep your ego on the side. Have an open mind. What else, Ajay?
I think I would add focus and prioritization, the ability to be able to focus and prioritize, because I think like we've all discussed, there's just so many things going around. It's very easy to just get completely, baffled by the amount of things coming our way.
Shakata?
One of the things I keep on telling people is that, are you creating followers or are you creating future leaders? And one of the criteria is how many future leaders you have created. And as you move up the rungs, I think managing business, par for the course, managing teams, yes, but managing self becomes a big thing. And I think that becomes a big criteria as you move up. And I think everyone, and also it also discourages diversity because you want to select people like you if you want to create followers. If you really want to create and disrupt and complement your skills, you have to create and select people who are not like you.
Yeah, I think that's a hallmark of success. How much value do you create for people around you as you create that value for yourself? So thank you very much, all of you, for joining us today this afternoon.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, once again, to all of you youngsters who are going to step up in the corporate world, all the very best from everyone here, and a big round of applause to each and every one of you. I'd now like to call the gentleman who gave not one but two quotes to do the job of two people, so please welcome Ajay Srinivasan to please step forward here. All right, now please welcome from our first set of winners today, Amok Satye, Anant Sabu, Anvesha Pal, and Chaitanya Kansal. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. I'd now like to request Mr. Saguata Gupta and Mr. Ashish Dikshit to please step forward and present this next set of awards. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ganesh S.K. And now Gaurav Garg, Govind Haridas, and Nijib Sharma. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Thank you, Mr. Dikshit. Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to request Mr. Sanjay Rishi, who's here on stage with us, and from the audience, Mr. Rajiv Dubey, to please join up on stage to present this next set of awards. Thank you, Mr. Dubey. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Niyati Sharma. And now please welcome Pratik Chaudhary. Please welcome Rahul Kumar. And put your hands together for Reema Ghosh. Thank you, Mr. Rishi. Thank you, Mr. Dubey. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Zarin Daruwala, and joining her, Mr. Neeraj Aggarwal. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Robin Gupta, Sahil Kukreja, Shalini Srivastava, Shruti Ravinder. Thank you, Ms. Daruwala. Thank you, Mr. Aggarwal. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to join Mr. Sumitro Ghosh, please welcome Mr. Dilip Gaur. Our recipients in this lot, please welcome Tanuj Sharma, Trisha Aggarwal, Trisha Roy, Tushar Sharma, and Twiga Dua. Thank you, Mr. Gaur. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Well, ladies, once again, a big round of applause to all the students, all the 12,000 who actually took part. Before we move on, I'd like to request Mr. Ashok Ramchandran, who's the Group Executive President, Group HR for the Aditya Birla Group, to please step up on stage and deliver a closing address.
Special thank you to our organizers, both the ET team as well as the Aditya Birla Group, which I'm part of. This is a property we've been talking about growing in strength. We want more participation. We want more full-hearted participation, which we see year after year. I'm told it strengthens over years. We pick up feedback from what worked, what didn't work. We want to go back to campus next year. You're going to be our campus ambassadors to drive the value of bringing senior CEOs and future CEOs closer to each other. And I'm sure this is a day which you'll remember. So wishing everybody the very, very best as you move forward in your times, in your careers, in your choices ahead. Both ET and Aditya Birla Group, we're proud of this property. We're proud of hosting this event. We're proud of meeting all of you. So really, all best wishes for a fantastic future ahead for each of you. God bless. Do well.